And hello, everyone. Welcome to today's presentation of Your Space. This is a family space session called Expressing Feelings, and we're thrilled to have Sue and Michelle from the Community Education Service at Ron Joyce Children's Health Center with us today, presenting on this topic and sharing information. And we encourage you to ask all the questions and share all the thoughts that you have through the session. And Sue and Michelle will respond to you and help you support your family in expressing feelings. So over to Sue and Michelle.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Sue, and I'm a behavior therapist, and I'm with Ron Joyce in the Child and Youth Mental Health Program.
And I'm Michelle. I'm a child life specialist, and Sue and I have been working together for the last 7 years, I think it's been. So
It's been
we are
7 years.
to support you. Yeah, and we want this to be informal. So if you have questions, you can put it in the chat or can they unmute, Louise? I'm sorry, I don't know if you said that or not. Let us know if you have any.
Just the chat for these sessions. Some of our sessions that are part of the longer series workshop, we have different options, but just the chat for you today.
Okay, so just put it in the chat if you have any questions about any of the content or the slides, if you need more clarification.
Okay, so here we go. So here's the situation. So the babysitter's coming over. Oh no. The parents are going to go out for a night out, and a very well-deserved night out it is. So how do your children react? How do your kids react, Michelle?
It really depends, but babysitting was okay, right? Because grandparents were coming over, they got a little spoiled, but
Oh,
really depends. So, we could have this reaction from your
me
kid,
for joy. I'm going to get lots of extra treats.
right? We could have this reaction, or this reaction, or this reaction.
I saw that a few times.
Yeah. So why do we have these different reactions? Why are the kids reacting so differently to the same situation? And
So if
this,
we think about our kids, they come from a very different place. So if we look at the big heart, this is where kids are coming from, right? So they're driven by big emotion, right? And the little blue circle is their thinking brain. And that's where they're at, right? So they're not driven by rational thought or realistic thinking at all, right? It's very, very small component of what's going on in their day. It's all about impact, emotion, intensity, in the moment sort of living, right? On the other hand, you have the adult, right? The big blue circle. We're all about the plan, what's realistic. We're in the rational brain, and a lot less in that sort of emotional sort of moment. So very, very much polar opposite. We're not matching up to our child's experience at all, right? We're really in completely different zones.
so what is the reaction about? So the little boy up top, what's going on there? So his emotion is excited. This is exciting. I've got another person that will play with me and another person to run around with. So, what is the behavior? So, you have an emotion, emotion creates behavior. So, if I'm feeling excited, the behavior might be some silly behavior like that we're jumping around and we're really excited. Um, so that could be one. I mean, you could have three children and react very differently to the same situation. So then we've got the next group of kids, which we've got anxiety. So what's the behavior? Crying, clinging to the parent, right? Like This is not fun. What do you mean you're leaving? Like, what does that mean? What if the world ends? What's going to happen to me? Is this person capable? I'm not feeling comfortable. And then they leave, like, they're on you, and don't leave, and that clingy behavior
Only
and crying, right? And sometimes this works because who stays home if the kid's crying? We can't leave them, right? And then we've got the anger, the frustration. What do you mean you're leaving me and you're going somewhere fun and I'm stuck with this person that I don't even know? And then we have this emotion, we have the behavior, right? And there isn't that pause button with a lot of children. Their heart's really, really big, right? So their reaction time is like, I feel this and it's coming out, right? You cut my cheese in half, I'm melting down. You gave me the purple cup, I'm melting down, right? They don't have that pause reaction like maybe an adult would. So then we go to the parents. How about you? Because your children react and have emotion. How do you react? So the same situation, and then you've got those different reactions. So how does your child's emotion affect you and your behavior? So same situation, babysitter. What emotion are we seeing here?
mm, I think he's praying to the gods.
Right? Maybe the dad's like, don't you act that way. And then it gets into a fight, right? Maybe the mom is like, oh, you know what? My kid's upset. I don't think I can go. Do we really need to go out for dinner? Why don't we just order in? Next mom might be embarrassed. I can't believe my child's acting this way. I just want to get out of here. How are we ever going to keep this babysitter for the next time? And
Yeah.
like Sue said, dad is like, let's just get out of here. I want to get out of here. I'm waiting to have this steak at the keg or wherever you're going. And then the end result is it's an awkward night because we've got all these emotions. We still follow through. And then maybe, the one parent is like, oh, I didn't feel comfortable. The other one is like, let's get out of here. And then your emotions create more emotions and more behaviors. And do you see the cycle here? Do you see what we're going? Is that emotion just creates more behavior and it just kind of feeds into each other, right? So there isn't a
This,
black and white answer to why your
does
child
this
acts.
resonate with folks? Does this do you sort of resonate with any of these pictures and these experiences?
You can use the little hand up emoji if you're feeling, yeah, I this looks like my house, whether it's the clingy behavior or the acting out, or even your reactions too.
Yep, it's awesome. Yeah, defeated.
If you,
Going out isn't worth it. So then you cave in, and then you're not taking your time that you guys need, right?
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So that emotion of feeling defeated then is forget it. We're not doing it. So you can see how your emotion then affects how you behave. And it's the same thing for your kids. Okay, so we've gone through this already where, where's the emotion going on with dad? He's feeling angry, embarrassed, defeated, so it's the same thing where, we've already discussed these emotions. So it's looking at each situation to say, this isn't going well. Our child reacts a certain way, we react a certain way. And then we have this scenario. Is it working or is it not working? And you're probably here because these things aren't working. So we want to help you re-look at what emotion is and change some of these unhelpful cycles and give you those skills and empowerment to, even though you're feeling a little defeated, to feel uncomfortable and still be able to follow through. But first, we
Mhm.
need to understand where the emotion's coming from, and then we can create a plan.
So emotions are not something that's static, right? They're constantly in motion, and they really are that driving force that push us, right? So they are that sort of fuel that keep us moving. They constantly are the thing that are making us behave the way that we do. They're the thing that make us respond the way that we do in certain situations, and they don't always react the same way, right? So they fluctuate. They have an intensity. It's kind of like on a roller coaster, right? So they have highs and they have lows. They have periods of stability. Sometimes they tank. Sometimes they really, go up really high and get very intense. And sometimes they bottom out on us, right? They also kind of motivate sort of troublesome behavior as well. So those periods of time when we may feel like we're on attack, when we get aggressive, or we feel very vulnerable, or we feel, more sort of on attack for ourselves, where we feel more devalued and we're attacking sort of our self-esteem and our self-concept. So emotions drive those sort of negative attacks that we do on ourselves as well as on others. So it's really that um, motion and fluidity that we want to sort of think about with emotion. But it is that driving force that pushes us to behave a certain way, right? So our thoughts are one thing, but our emotions really are the gas pedal that pushes us to behave a certain way. And that's the thing that we have to try to be able to deal with and to be able to turn down the intensity factor, because we can't eliminate emotion. Emotion is just is what it is. We're human beings and we feel and experience things in this world through emotion. But we have to be able to manage the intensity of those emotions so that we can be able to sort of function throughout our day.
Yes. And I think it's that we all reacting like the ebb and flow, right? Where one minute it's like, why are they so upset? Where yesterday I gave them the purple cup and it was fine, right? A lot of times it's not about that thing, and that they're children, right? Very emotional. So let's create that plan, because how people react and how people deal with things are going to be very different. So that's this kind of stuff we're going to be talking about. So we're going to do this little hot button activity. Sue, this is your favorite, isn't it?
It
The
is
hot
one
button
of
activity.
my favorites.
Yeah.
Yes. So this is a little activity that you guys can do. So we're going to give you a few minutes to kind of hopefully you've got a piece of paper or something that you can use to sort of fill this out for yourselves. Um, just to write down what are some of those behaviors that you are seeing in your child, right? So what are those things that are kind of pushing your buttons, or those uh, hot buttons that your kids are kind of poking you with, right? The things that kind of trigger you off. What are a couple of those behaviors that you see, kind of like on a regular daily basis? And then what are the emotions that come up for you when that happens? How does it make you feel? What is that emotional response? So remember we talked about the emotions are the things that are driving the response. So what is that actual response that it gets from you, right? And be honest with yourself. I mean, if you yell or you scream or you slam a door or you ignore or you walk away, be honest with yourself. Write down what your actual reaction is. And then can you think of a different approach? If you could do a do-over, if you could have a way to kind of step back from it and look at it differently, what could you do different? What could you do to sort of handle your own emotion in a different way, to turn it down a little bit, right? To turn down the volume on your own intensity. You can't do anything to change their behavior at the moment. All you have control over is your emotional response. So you have to be able to address it from that perspective, is what can you do differently to turn down your own intensity of the emotion in this moment. Okay, so we'll
I
give you
think
a minute
even,
or two just to jot down a couple of things.
yeah, because I think even if we look at the comments about even dropping them off, if we took dropping them off and then my partner fights with my child. So if we took that scenario and just put it together, the child's behavior is difficult, having a meltdown while being dropped off at grandparents' house. How you feel, frustrated, irritated, defeated, whatever it is, and then how you react. Like, are you kidding me? And this is maybe the parent that's going to fight. Are you kidding me? It's your grandparents. You know about this. In my head, I'm thinking I'm going to be late for work. I've got other stuff I need to be doing. You've been here before. Come on, right? And this is how we react. And then what's happening to that relationship between you and your child. So, like Sue said, how can we look at that differently? We're going to grandparents' house, but does the child know that there's actually that how long they're going to be there? What really is the worry about being left at grandparents' house? Is it kind of boring there? Can we bring some things? So I'm going to have to chat to my child about what is going on. How can we make it a little bit better? And maybe we need to do some pre-planning and just acknowledging that they're anxious kids and they're emotional. And when we respond to their emotion with negativity, they give us more of the negative emotion or the unhelpful emotion, and that just turns into a cycle. So that's a lot to write in those little spaces, but just something to think about.
You might want to even sort of flesh out that frustration, right? What else is it besides frustration that you're feeling? Are you feeling angry? Are you feeling annoyed? Are you feeling overwhelmed, disappointed, let down? Find out what is behind it. Yeah. Are they bored? Yeah. Did you bring toys? Some of these things are not necessarily things that you can do in the moment, but I like where you're going with some of this in terms of thinking about a plan, because you may have to have this discussion. So if you're going to go to grandma and grandpa's or going to someone's house, this might not be a conversation that you're having in the moment while they're having a meltdown, right? So if they're having that emotional meltdown at that point, that's not when you're saying, okay, well, let's sit down and talk about it, right? This is a conversation that you're having, on the Wednesday before or the Sunday before, and saying, hey, we're going over to grandma and grandpa's next weekend. What kinds of things do we want to take with us? What kinds of toys? And you do that gradual build up, right? I know that my daughter does this with our granddaughter as well when they're planning to have her come here and do a sleepover, right? It's a gradual build up. We do, phone chats. We do, you know, um, the FaceTimes with her throughout the week. We talk about it. We talk about stories that we're going to read. We talk about activities we're going to do, right? So we build up some of that excitement with her so that she's looking forward to the visit. She knows what to expect. She knows what to experience, what she's going to experience when she comes here, so that she gets a little bit excited by the time the day arrives, right? So there's a bit of a build up, because doing it in the moment, chances are you're not going to have as much success. So having that discussion with the child is great, but in the moment when you're feeling very frustrated and disappointed and let down and all of that, and you giving in and responding with the negativity, what can you do as a parent in that moment, right?
Mhm. Yeah. I think the other thing too, Sue, is the planning that you're talking about. What we hear a lot from parents, especially when you have a child that easily melts down or is going to push back, We don't tell them, right? So it's like, we got to go. We're going to grandma's. Stop what you're doing. Let's go. Turn that TV off. I told you to turn it off. Let's go. And it's like, with children like this, we have to wake the bear. We have to prepare. And they might be like, oh, I don't want to. And then we react to that and we're like, what do you mean? You're going to your grandparents' house. They look forward to seeing you. I can't believe, like, there's some people that don't even see their grandparents. I wish I could have been dropped off. Like, when we get into all of this, because it's like, I need to get there. I knew this was going to be a fight. Like, let's get going. But with these children, sometimes they just react, but they're still getting ready. They're allowed to have their emotion. We don't need to fix everything. They don't have to be happy about everything, but it brings up emotion for us when they react a certain way. So we either throw butterflies and fairies at it, or we try to fix it, and make sure that they're happy and they're skipping to get ready for school or getting ready for bed. And they're not always going to be happy. It's not normal to be that way, but we have to tolerate some of that distress and know that there's going to be a fight with this kid. So let's be prepared emotionally ourselves. So we need more time and more lead up, like Sue was explaining with her granddaughter. Okay.
And I think about, like doing that planning stuff is really important, but in the moment, like when you have a child that's having that emotional meltdown in the moment, um, you may just have to take your foot off the gas, right? You've got to take that pause, because if you keep pushing and pushing and pushing, you've just got Clash of the Titans going on. Remember, they're being driven by that emotion, remember that big heart? They're being driven by that emotion, and you're being driven by that rational brain, and you guys are not going to see each other on an even playing field right now. So you are that rational thinker. You need to take your foot off the gas, and maybe you need to take a pause. Maybe you need to let them sort of calm down. Maybe you need to have a bit of a calm down activity for them to be able to sort of take a pause. Let's take a breath. Maybe you walk away. Maybe they walk away. Maybe you then have a little bit of a conversation with them and say, listen, I can see that you're really frustrated. I can see that you're scared or you're upset about going. How can I help you with this right now? I want to be able to support you to have a good time at Grandma and Grandpa's. What can we do? How can I help you? Right? So come back to it and try and see if you can help them to build in some kind of a small plan in the moment, which can be tough, but you've got to allow them to bring that intensity meter down on the emotion, because if you don't and you keep pushing, 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 it's just going to be a big explosion, and you are going to end up just caving in and saying, okay, fine, that's it, we're not going, it's done.
And I think
Right?
also,
Because it just becomes too difficult.
yes. And I think asking them what they need in the moment, something that you can do in the moment, but better to do outside, and use this example of things not going well. I noticed this happened. I noticed this emotion. What do you need from me? Because what happens a lot is that we get stressed out. And I hear this from parents where it's like, you're now having a meltdown, and we all need to sit here and watch you have this meltdown, and you're ruining our night, right? Just, you need to go and calm down. And for some children, they're seeking attachment from you, but they're not doing it in a nice way. They're acting out, they're acting in a certain way, and they need that hug, they need that support, or just sitting in silence with them. And it can be really tough to give this to a child that's having a meltdown, because we think, no, they need to be punished. If I give them a hug, they're going to think that this is okay. But what we're doing is saying, I see you, right? So I'm matching your emotion with emotion, the same emotion. So if Sue is upset and I'm like, don't worry, everything's going to come up roses tomorrow, does she feel heard? Probably not. And if anything, might be annoyed. Now, as an adult, she might be able to put up some boundaries and say, hey, this is too much right now, Michelle. Like, I need a moment or whatever. If she was a 5-year-old or a 3-year-old or a 10-year-old, she might tell me to get lost. She might have a meltdown. She might storm out of the room. So it's having that engagement with your child. But this is really tough to do when you're having a hard time with your emotion as well, and then we react to their emotion, and it's like you're going to be this way, you need to get out. If you're going to ruin everybody's night by having this temper tantrum, you need to go, right? So there is a space for having some quiet time, downtime, but that's a planning ahead thing. And just imagine that child that kind of needs you, and you're telling them you need to go because this is upsetting me, or you're upsetting your sister, and what happens to them and how do they feel, right? It's not a black and white kind of thing. There's a lot of work involved with this.
I hope that was helpful for people, and you can, use this and just kind of, write it down for yourselves in terms of sort of thinking about other issues that you may have or other behaviors, and just kind of walk that through. So when you feel like you're kind of stuck, you can use this as a way to kind of walk through what's kind of happening. Um, I mean, you're not actually going to do this in the moment, but you can do it sort of after the fact, where you can start to walk through, where you can maybe start to see what's happening and say, okay, how could I have maybe dealt with that a little bit differently? Because again, when emotion is so intense like that, even for ourselves, we're those rational thinkers, we don't do well with problem solving, right? So we don't do well with figuring out what that alternative approach is going to be, and figuring out what, the plans could be, and all of the things that we've sort of talked about here. So again, figuring that out and recognizing, that intensity of that emotion, and how do we turn that down so that we can figure out those problem approaches and how to sort of deal with it, are really, really important and critical here.
Yes. Thanks, Louise, for getting all this up, or Haruka. I think we need a
Absolutely.
space for alternative approach. I'll remember that for our next session.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, I was just
This is
thinking
what you
that.
do. You kind of brainstorm. You look at things that don't go so well, and then what can we do? What can we do differently? Okay. Is it okay to move forward? We're good. Did everybody get those notes?
I can put a screenshot of these that maybe looks a little nicer later on to the resource page.
Okay. Perfect.
Perfect. That
That
would be
sounds
great,
awesome.
Louise.
Thank you
Thank
for
you so
that.
much. I think everybody would
This looks,
appreciate that.
this is great. You're a great note taker.
So, emotional IQ contributes to about 20% about how, or IQ contributes to about 20% of how successful we are in life. So, we spend a lot of time pushing academics, and it really only contributes to a very small percentage of how successful our children are in life. So that leaves 80% of emotional social development, that we spend a lot less time on and focus on, um, with kids, in terms of how well they deal with their world around them, right? So if they're able to process their situations, if they're able to process their experiences in their world, whether they're good, bad, in between, it's all about emotion management, right? And how they go through life, and how they deal with those experiences, makes such a huge impact on relationships, jobs, employment, um, family life, friendships, just all areas of their life, right? It really makes a huge, huge impact, in terms of their overall outcome and success, and being able to sort of, mature and grow. 20%, like I said, 20% of their overall success is academics.
Yeah. And there's a question here about what do you do, if you've got a 3-year-old that can't articulate your needs. Well, you might have a 15-year-old or a 10-year-old that you ask them what's going on. I don't know. I don't know. So that's why this being here is really important, because it's giving you an opportunity to say, what could it possibly be? And even how you react to that child will change how they react to you. So if they're upset and crying and you're just keep asking why, at this point, I don't know why, right? I have no idea what's going on. And I'm 3 or I'm 10 or I'm 12 and I can't figure this out, right? And it could have been something that happened 3 days ago, but each day it builds and builds and builds. And now you cut my cheese in half and I'm melting down. It's not about the cheese. It's not about the thing. So in that moment, what do they need? They need you to match their emotion. What do you need from me? Do you need a hug? Do you need some space? Let's take a minute and let's just calm down for a minute. And what does that look like? So this is a lot of work that we're going to be talking about in a few slides on preparing them. What are those things that make them feel good? Because it's not usually about figuring it out, because you're not going to fix it in the moment anyway, right? But in the moment, what do they need? And they need you to see them and to hear them and to match their emotion. But we want to get into fix it mode. We want it to go away, and it's allowing them to have their emotion. Okay.
When you think about a 3-year-old, you know what, they may not be able to articulate what they need, but you probably can see what it is that they need, right? I'm thinking about my granddaughter who is almost 3 and wants certain things, and you can see that she doesn't have the words to describe, right, what it is that she needs. But she wants to be part of something, or she wants to be involved in something, and you can see that she gets these little tantrums, and sometimes they're not so little. But you can see why it's being driven that direction. So, but I can validate that for her, and I can say, I can see that you really want to be part of something. I can start to identify that for her. And she kind of responds back to me, and she'll look at me and she recognizes what I'm saying. She knows what I'm saying. She sees the connection between how she's feeling and what it is that I'm trying to say. I can see that you really want to be part of this, or I can see that you really wanted to do this, and that you really wanted to close the door, and mommy closed it for you without asking, right? And didn't let you do it on your own. And she threw a fit. Or that she wanted to come into the bathroom because she just wants to be curious to see what everybody else is doing in the bathroom, because she's learning how to toilet train and doesn't want to allow privacy for other people. You have to be able to sort of do that a little bit for them to help start to make those sort of connections for them at this stage, right? So you're doing some of that work for them. You're matching the thought and the emotion. You're making some of those neural connections for them. And they will start to get it, right? Because they are still very little. But they will start to get some of those connections if you start to articulate some of that for them. And with respect to the babysitter being an older sibling, I'm not really sure what the issue around that is in terms of the babysitter being an older sibling.
Well, and I think that's the issue, is that if they're freaking out because they're getting taken care of by their older sibling, what really is the issue there? What is the child struggling with? Maybe the older sibling is like, why am I babysitting? You had these kids, and now it's my job to take care of these kids? I'm not interested. I don't care if they eat, chips all day, or I'm not going to feed them, or I don't get paid for this. I'll go somewhere else and get paid, but you don't pay me? So, maybe the older child has all these these thoughts, right, which causes emotion, which causes them to act a certain way. And the little kids are like, no, don't leave me with this guy. He's going to ignore me, or he's going to go on his video games and play video games with his friends. And I'm going to get ignored. The last time I didn't have dinner, so what really is going on there? And what are they struggling with? Which is this right here. We see the tip of the iceberg, that they're resistant, but what is really going on? And usually as parents, we're just rational. We're just say, look, this, you're the oldest sibling. This is just part of it. I used to babysit my siblings. This is just the way that it is. But is there some resistance there? Is the older child resenting this and then they take it out on the younger one? Is this actually the right fit? And being able to have those conversations, not in the moment, but to say, I'm noticing when I leave you with your older sibling, there seems to be some issues. Or I'm noticing that, or your younger sibling is saying it's not so much fun. Tell me about what's going on, because when you're babysitting, there seems to be a huge fight. And maybe you're going to get those answers from the older sibling saying, I don't want to do this. Or could you throw me 20 bucks? Yeah, I feel like it's unfair. Or you just throw it on me and I don't have a chance to plan. And the last time I was supposed to go out with my friends and I had to cancel with my friends. And it could start a conversation. But they're going to start talking. Their emotion is going to create maybe a little bit of a fight, or, so you have to stay calm, hear what they have to say, repeat what they're saying back. So you feel like this isn't fair. You feel like this is that you should be getting paid, or that your younger siblings' behavior is really unmanageable and you don't feel like it's fair, or whatever it is. So how do we work on this together, right? Because the behavior is coming from certain emotions. Okay, so this is this a poll, Louise?
Do we want to do this as a poll, or do we
Yep.
do? Yep.
Let me just switch on over to that.
If you guys want to just do a quick kind of go through and just answer what some of the struggles are that some of your kids may be having.
Yeah, check off everything that is a struggle. Looks like we got some black and white thinkers. Those
I
black and
was
white
going to say,
thinkers
yeah.
do not like any kind of change. So if you've checked off difficulty with change and you haven't checked off black and white thinker, you need to check
We've
off
got
black.
lots of the physical. So it looks like we may have some anxious kids here too, right? So some of you may want to think about doing our Parenting Your Anxious Child. We'll probably run that again in the new year. Some of you may have some ADHD kids. We're just in the midst of finishing up our Parenting Your ADHD Child program, but we'll probably run that as well again in the new year.
Yeah.
Wow.
So with the difficulty with change or unpredictability, which is huge, so those are those black and white rigid thinkers. It has to be a certain way. I want it this way. I like to have my way. And then usually we will tiptoe around that because we don't want to get the behavior going. So we feel like we're walking on eggshells. We have to, we feel like I'll let them sleep. So, and then I'll prepare their breakfast and dress them as they're walking out the door, and they still have a temper tantrum. They still have a meltdown. So, with black and white thinkers and those kids that don't like a lot of change, routine is great. But if we're too rigid on that and we try to like protect them and be like, oh, don't upset them, then what are we teaching them? We actually have to throw more gray and more changes and very simple stuff. Sometimes just we said we were going to Fortino's and then the library, and we're actually going to switch that up. That in itself can be upsetting to some of these children, but we tend to try to keep things very rigid so they don't have a meltdown. And then they go out into the real world where life is very, very gray, right? And then they get really upset when we didn't have gym and we were supposed to have gym, and instead we had an assembly, and then the teacher's got to deal with this, right? So lots to think about. What's another big one here, Sue? Lack of my thinker and
Even
physical.
self-esteem. We've got a few in the 40, 43. We've got mental health issues and some
Physical
impulsive
complaints as
stuff
well.
going on. The physical complaints, that's why I'm thinking restless sleeping and physical complaints were high.
Yes. So this could be those anxious things. I'm an anxious kid. My stomach is hurting. The other thing too is with physical complaints, that's the stuff parents will listen to. You know, when I say I have a stomach ache, you'll let me stay home. But if I say I'm nervous about a test, you're like, too bad, go to school. But if I say I have a stomach ache, then someone hears me, and then I get to avoid and stay home, right? And the emotion stuff is will bring on stomach aches for sure. Stomach aches, headaches. Think of how many of you probably need a massage or have, tense shoulders because of your stress. So let's take a look at a scenario. So probably a lot of you, especially if you're working with anxiety, have the Sunday night blues where Sunday night is tough because Monday is school, right? So as a parent, what are your emotions, thoughts, and behavior? What could they be? What do you guys think? For parents, we've got this scenario. Take a look at the picture. Can anybody relate, or can you say what possibly could be going on here? What are the emotions the parents are dealing with? What are some of those thoughts? How are they behaving? Um, what could possibly be out there? Would anybody like to just put in the chat some emotions? Maybe we'll just start with emotions, even if that's easier. Whatever is easier.
Scared.
So the parent is scared or the child is scared?
The child is scared. The child looks scared, worried. I don't want to go to school tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. So I'm not seeing any answers come up. So we'll fill in the
Yeah.
blanks here, right? So if the emotion is feeling scared, the thought could be, I've got a test tomorrow. Recess is not fun for me. I never get to play four square. There's always somebody else that gets in there without me. And so my behavior is I'm going to cry or I'm going to refuse to go to bed.
I
Um,
don't want to have to wear that mask.
yeah, I don't want to wear the mask, right? Yeah, and then some
Here we,
answers
and then
here.
parents are thinking, here we go again.
Yeah.
Here we go again. I don't want to deal with this. I don't have time to deal with this.
Mhm.
I don't know how to deal with this.
Right. Yep. And what's going to happen tomorrow? I feel like it's a fight every week. What's going on? Um, once they get to school, they're fine. This is ridiculous. I had no problems with their brother, but all of a sudden, I'm parenting the children the same way, but one reacts one way, one reacts the other. I feel defeated. I know with one kid I'm doing something right. Am I doing something wrong? So then what do we do? Right? Fine, you can just stay home.
To go to
Fine,
school.
don't worry
I
about
just
the
need them to
homework.
go
You
to
can sleep
school.
in my bed.
Right? And somebody's like, I just need them to go to school. I've got to get to work.
Mhm.
Right?
Yep.
I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't have them stay home.
So if we were to look at some tips on what you would do, the first piece is to validate the emotion, yours and your child's. Right? What is really going on here with you? And can you validate that, yeah, I'm doing my best and this just doesn't seem to be working? Or, I've had 2 good weeks and this one hasn't been great, but we have had 2 good weeks, right? So give yourself some credit. They usually do okay. Sundays are always a little bit rocky, but then the rest of the week is okay. So if we can watch the video, we can kind of give you an idea of what validation really looks like, and how you can support your child with those emotions.
Absolutely. You hear a lot about validation, so hopefully this video will give you a little bit of a better understanding.
I'm just going to switch it over to the video screen. I do want to give people a heads up that if you're having any connection issues, or if Sue and Michelle have gotten like their sound's breaking up a little bit, might be just a connection piece at your end. You could log out and back in again and see if that helps. When we switch over to the video, there might be a little hiccup for that as well. But the video's a couple minutes long, and then we'll close that down and things should settle.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you can climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
You're muted, Sue.
So again, it's that piece of putting yourself in their shoes. We don't need to fix, and sometimes it's just sitting in silence with them and allowing them to have their emotion. When you do that, they feel heard, and then eventually they calm down, can do their own problem solving if necessary. But we don't need to jump in, and there's a time and place for problem solving, and that's when everybody's calm. And what really is going on here? How can we make Sundays easier? We notice that getting out of the door is really tough to get to soccer practice or to school. Tell me a little bit about what's happening. Get the conversation going without jumping in. And what we're doing is we're listening to understand, not to respond. Thanks for sharing with me. I had no idea. Just repeat what they've just said. Once everybody's calm, then let's do some problem solving, because if every morning is tough, if every time they do homework is tough, if every time we need to get out of the door is tough, then what is going on? Do they need some more structure? Do we need to use strategies like the when then, reward systems, routines, checklists, timers? I mean, we can go on and on. But what we're doing here is looking more at the emotion and opening up the conversation, because emotion creates behavior. So what's behind that behavior? And do they just need some more structure? Because if I have a meltdown, then it'll delay the situation, or you're going to stay home. You're not going out for that dinner if I have a meltdown, right? So there's a lot of weeding out to do. So hopefully you can go home and kind of take a look at this a little bit more, or come back and do some more courses as well, right?
So these are just some of those calm down plan ideas that we were talking about. And you know what? Some of these are great for the kids. Some of these are great for you as well. So having some routines, some solid routines, maybe creating a calm down zone or a calm down space somewhere, having a calming box, which is just a box of some activities or things that the kids can carry with them that they can use, that they find brings them sort of some calm feelings. Fidget toys that they might like to carry with them, a communication book or a journal that they could write in or draw in, practicing any kind of mindfulness, some meditation, some relaxation activities, stretching. A lot of kids enjoy doing yoga, distraction techniques. Any kind of distraction techniques are really good to kind of get us out of sort of that negative thinking traps that we get caught in. So what we mean by that is, you know, any of those little mind games that we used to play. So I Spy with My Little Eye, counting backwards, any kind of like counting games, color games, you know, 5 things I see that are blue, 5 things I see that are green, you know, doing things like looking at cloud watching, stuff like that. Anything that's sort of a distraction and sort of taking your mind away from your thinking. Being a good role model goes without saying, so you really have to show kids and model this behavior in your children so that they watch what you do, right? If you're showing them how to deal with emotion in a positive way, then they're going to follow in your footsteps. And the planning ahead, again, it's absolutely critical. If you have a good solid plan, then you can actually get things set in motion, and they know what's going on and you know what's going on, and everybody knows what to expect and plan for, and then you have a good solid footing to sort of get things off to a good start.
Yes. So the next few slides are just some resources that we wanted to give you to help you. Building your child's emotional vocabulary is really important. So a feelings or emotion wheel, you can Google them. They just expand the vocabulary. Let's pick a word a week. When would I feel that way? Why would I feel that way? And turn it into a bit of a game. Label their emotion, label your emotion, so it becomes the norm to be able to share our emotion. If a child shares their emotion, we don't have to get into why, what's going on. Sometimes they just need to share. I'm feeling frustrated. Today's not been a great day. And that's where that communication book can come in handy as well, where I'm just going to write down how I'm feeling, that I didn't have a great day. I don't feel like talking about it, but I'll let you know that's why my mood's a little bit off. Because like Sue said earlier, you can't force these conversations. So some of these things will open up the conversation. So this is from do2learn.com. What makes them feel furious, angry, frustrated, and calm? What are those things that, you know, affect their feelings and emotions and their mood? And how much control do they have over it? How can I react? What are helpful ways to react? And what are some things that will help me to calm down when I'm feeling frustrated, when I'm feeling furious or sad. So going through different emotions as well. This is just a really simple kind of trying to understand, especially, you've got younger kids, maybe they're hungry, maybe they're angry, maybe they're feeling lonely or they're tired. I mean, I'm taking them jean shopping at lunchtime when they haven't eaten or they need a nap. And sometimes it's just this simple. And then they get emotional because they're tired or hungry or lonely. So just more things for you to look at and think about. I think visuals are really good as well. So trying different types of visuals, faces from kidpoints.com or something like this where you can take them out of a magazine or off the internet and create your own. Or you can take pictures of them, have them show you what different emotions look like. Again, these are for younger children. If you've got older children, you would just adapt them to what your needs are and what are going to work for them. List of some relaxation, making this part of every day. That this is part of your routine, so it helps lower the stress levels. It helps lower some of those anger levels and anxiety levels or whatever, because we do these things on a regular basis, and maybe we do that along with them. That an hour before bed, we all have some wind down time. Music, coloring sheets, fidget toys, creating a zen zone or a quiet zone that they can go to proactively. When I'm starting to feel my bubbles come up, I'm going to go to my quiet zone, maybe add a reward chart to that because I'm noticing that you are getting in charge of your emotions, catching it early. It's just a lot of work, but really worth it. Just some resources for you as well. This has been a quiet group, not tons of questions. We've got a few minutes. Is there anything that you wanted us to clarify? Any questions about the content, how to make it work at home? So the stick is just something that is filled with its water, and then they try to find the what's it called?
Like sparkles and stuff.
There's sparkles, but this is it's like an I Spy one, but you can create one with glycerin and water, and then you put sparkles and buttons and all kinds of things in there. This one's an I Spy one that I got from Scholar's Choice, but they have little sequins in there, so you have to try to find the sequins that are dolphins or that are stars. It's just a distraction tool, a calming tool. It can be really calm to look at. Yeah. Any other questions? And that's a Tangle Junior that you kind of turn. And
Turn it, twist it.
They have those at the dollar store.
Yes, they do.
the Tangle
It's a little
Juniors,
bendy
that's
one.
awesome.
Mandalas you can print off.
Yeah. And even those coloring sheets, they have them at the dollar store too. Create a little quiet zone with all the stuff there. Maybe a bin of kinetic sand, a bowl of water, put a towel underneath them and that makes them feel calm, right? So creating those things will just um, lower the stress levels and just make them feel better because it's just fun stuff.
Is there a good definition of an anxious child? Anxiety, if anxiety is causing a lot of avoidance, right? So avoidance is the ultimate goal of anxiety. So if they're avoiding a lot of things and not participating in their sort of day-to-day life, then chances are that anxiety is getting in the way. So I would say avoidance. And if there's a lot of exceptions being made by the people in their life, so school and family and anybody else that's, daycares or whoever else is involved in their care, if there's a lot of exceptions being made, so you don't have to go here, it's okay, that's all right. That's what I mean by exceptions. So avoidance and exceptions.
And if you go to yourspacehamilton.ca, if you go to their YouTube or to their website, Sue actually did do a webinar on childhood anxiety. So you could watch that to get a little more clarification on anxiety. And like we mentioned, there's the Parenting Your Anxious Child, which is a weekly three sessions that you do once a week that may help with that.
Thanks for that.
Any other questions before I sign
All right,
off?
let me see. There's a comment back about the anxious child. My child isn't anxious, but seems to be fearful of everything.
So that would be an anxious child.
Anxious child. We talk about anxiety in terms of being worries and fears. Depending on the age of the child, we do have a program called No Fear, KNOW. And Louise maybe can put up a link for that for you to our page on the hospital website. If your child's between the ages of 8 and 12, it's a parent and child program. Our program is underway right now, but we will be running it again in the new year. It's a very popular program.
And Parenting Your Anxious Child, so you're understanding it as well.
I'm just going to jump on my mic because the resource page has all those links on it to the Family Resource Center as well as to the Child Needs Mental Health Program and Sue and Michelle's information. I will put it in the chat too, but just letting you know that you don't have to try and hurry up and grab all these things out of the chat. They will be on the website.
Perfect. Thank you, Louise.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. We have given you a lot of information. We've got lots of other things that you can come to if you need more support around this. So yeah, thanks for having us.
Have a great day, everyone.
Yes, thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to put a couple of links up into the chat. Actually, it doesn't quite work the same way here, so I'm going to bypass that. But you will get a follow-up email that has the resource page link that's on the screen there, as well as the feedback survey. We really do appreciate it if you have a moment to fill out the survey and let us know what was helpful, what you'd like more of, what we could do better with as well. And we hope to see you all again soon. And thank you so much to Sue and Michelle for sharing all this information over the lunchtime. And hope that you're able to have some fun expressing feelings with your kids at home.